Have you ever stopped for a moment and wondered why it feels like everyone else is moving forward while you're standing in the exact same place? Maybe you're working hard, trying to stay positive, making plans, even dreaming about a better future, yet somehow nothing really changes. The strange part is that you can't always explain why. You just wake up one day and realize you've been living the same emotional week over and over again. If that sounds familiar, you're not lazy, you're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. What you're about to hear might completely change the way you understand why you feel stuck. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing that being stuck means you're not doing enough. But that's rarely the real problem. Most people who feel trapped are actually doing plenty. They're going to work, paying bills, taking care of responsibilities, answering messages, and checking off endless tasks. They're busy every single day. The issue isn't inactivity. The issue is movement without direction. Imagine running on a treadmill. You're moving constantly. Your heart is racing. Your legs are tired. But no matter how much effort you put in, you're still in exactly the same place. That's how many people experience life. Constant activity creates the illusion of progress, but internally nothing feels different. Psychologists often talk about the comfort zone, but it's more complicated than most people realize. People don't stay in familiar situations because they're comfortable. Sometimes those situations are painful, frustrating, or even miserable. They stay because they're predictable. The human brain is designed to prioritize certainty over possibility. It would rather choose a familiar disappointment than an uncertain opportunity. Think about that for a second. How many people stay in jobs they dislike because they know exactly what tomorrow will look like? How many remain in unhealthy relationships because starting over feels terrifying? How many postpone their dreams because failure seems more painful than regret? The brain isn't always trying to make you happy. Much of the time, it's trying to keep you safe. Unfortunately, emotional safety and personal growth often pull in opposite directions. There's another invisible reason people remain stuck that almost nobody talks about. Identity. Most of us believe our actions create our identity, but over time the opposite begins to happen. Our identity starts controlling our actions. If someone quietly believes they're unlucky, they'll unconsciously notice every setback while ignoring every success. If someone secretly believes they're not confident, they'll avoid situations that could actually build confidence. If someone thinks they're just not disciplined, every small mistake becomes proof that nothing can change. The story you repeat about yourself becomes the filter through which you experience reality. Imagine carrying around a pair of glasses with slightly dark lenses. Eventually you stop noticing the glasses and simply believe the entire world is darker than it really is. Many people spend years trying to change their habits without ever questioning the story underneath those habits. Here's something fascinating about the human mind. Your brain is constantly trying to remain consistent with what it already believes, even when those beliefs are limiting. That's why positive thinking alone often doesn't work. If someone deeply believes they don't deserve success, repeating, "I deserve success," can actually create internal resistance because it clashes with their existing identity. Real change begins when your experiences slowly provide evidence that the old story is no longer true. Another reason people feel trapped is decision fatigue. Modern life asks us to make thousands of decisions every single day. What should I eat? Should I answer this email now? Which video should I watch? What should I buy? Should I save money or spend it? Tiny decisions may seem harmless, but they slowly drain mental energy. By the end of the day, the brain starts craving the easiest possible option. That's why people often promise themselves they'll start exercising tomorrow, begin reading next week, or finally launch that project next month. It's not always a lack of motivation. Sometimes it's simply mental exhaustion disguised as procrastination. Now ask yourself something honestly. When was the last time you had enough quiet space to actually hear your own thoughts? Not scrolling. Not watching. Not listening. Just thinking. Silence has become uncomfortable for many people because it forces us to confront questions we've been avoiding. Am I happy? Is this really the life I want? What am I afraid of? Those questions don't always have immediate answers, but avoiding them guarantees that nothing changes. Here's another psychological trap that quietly keeps people stuck. Comparison. Social media has made comparison almost automatic. Every day you're exposed to carefully edited moments from hundreds of other lives. Promotions. Vacations. Relationships. Fitness transformations. New businesses. New homes. Your brain naturally compares your ordinary Tuesday afternoon to someone else's greatest highlight. The dangerous part isn't simply feeling jealous. It's believing you're behind. But behind whom? Everyone is following a completely different timeline with different advantages, different struggles, different opportunities, and different starting points. Imagine comparing the growth of an oak tree to a bamboo plant. For years, bamboo seems to barely grow above the surface. Then suddenly it shoots upward at an incredible speed because its roots were developing underground the entire time. Human progress often works the same way. Some seasons are visible. Others are invisible. Just because nothing dramatic appears to be happening doesn't mean nothing is happening. Growth often happens internally long before it becomes visible externally. Another hidden reason people feel stuck is perfectionism. Perfectionism pretends to be about high standards, but underneath it's often about fear. Fear of criticism. Fear of failure. Fear of looking inexperienced. Fear of disappointing others. Perfectionism whispers, wait until you're fully ready. The problem is that fully ready rarely exists. Every successful person you admire once felt unprepared. Every expert was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once stumbled over their words. Every business owner once had their first customer. Action creates confidence far more often than confidence creates action. There's also something called learned helplessness, a concept discovered through psychological research many decades ago. When people experience repeated situations where their efforts don't seem to change the outcome, they sometimes stop trying altogether. This doesn't only happen in extreme circumstances. It happens in everyday life. Someone applies for dozens of jobs without success. Someone repeatedly experiences rejection. Someone keeps failing to lose weight. Eventually their brain starts concluding, nothing I do matters. The tragedy is that even when opportunities finally appear, they may not recognize them because they've already accepted defeat internally. The past begins controlling the future. But here's the encouraging truth. Learned helplessness can also be unlearned. Small victories matter far more than most people realize. Every promise you keep to yourself becomes evidence. Every difficult conversation you finally have becomes evidence. Every morning you choose discipline over comfort becomes evidence. Your identity doesn't change all at once. It changes through accumulated proof. One decision at a time. Let's talk about fear for a moment. Most people assume they're afraid of failure. Sometimes that's true. But often they're even more afraid of success. Success brings responsibility, visibility, higher expectations, change. If your entire identity has been built around staying unnoticed, succeeding can feel surprisingly uncomfortable. The mind sometimes protects its current identity even when that identity creates suffering. That's why people occasionally sabotage opportunities right before something good happens. They miss deadlines, delay important conversations, stop showing up consistently. Not because they don't want success. Because success feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliar can feel dangerous to the brain. Here's something worth reflecting on. The life you're living today was built by thousands of small decisions you barely remember making. Sleeping in. Saving money. spending money, calling someone, ignoring someone, reading, scrolling, speaking up, staying silent. Tiny choices repeated over months quietly become your reality. The encouraging part is that the opposite is also true. Tiny positive choices repeated consistently can completely transform your future. Not overnight. Not dramatically. But steadily. Think about water slowly carving through solid rock. Water isn't stronger. It's simply persistent. Human transformation often looks exactly like that. Slow. Almost invisible. Then suddenly undeniable. One mistake people make is waiting to feel motivated before taking action. Motivation is wonderful when it appears, but it's unreliable. Discipline is much more dependable. Interestingly, action itself often creates motivation. You don't always feel inspired before beginning. Sometimes inspiration shows up because you began. Imagine standing outside a cold swimming pool. The longer you think about jumping in, the harder it becomes. But once you're actually swimming, the fear quickly disappears. Life works similarly. Thinking endlessly about change usually feels harder than taking the first imperfect step. There's another emotional weight many people carry without realizing it. Unresolved guilt. Maybe guilt about wasted years. Past mistakes. Missed opportunities. Broken relationships. Poor decisions. The mind has a habit of replaying old chapters while forgetting that life keeps writing new ones. Your past can teach you. It doesn't have to imprison you. One lesson learned honestly is often more valuable than years spent pretending everything went perfectly. Something else that quietly keeps people trapped is living according to someone else's definition of success. From childhood we're surrounded by expectations. Get this degree. Earn this salary. Buy this house. Reach this milestone by this age. But what if the ladder you've been climbing is leaning against the wrong wall? Many people don't need a completely different life. They need a definition of success that actually belongs to them. Maybe success for you means peace. Meaningful relationships. Good health. Freedom over status. Time instead of money. Purpose instead of approval. Only you can answer that question. And until you do, you may spend years chasing goals that never truly satisfy you. If you genuinely want your life to change, start paying attention to what you repeatedly tell yourself every day. Listen carefully to your internal conversations. Notice the excuses that sound reasonable. Notice the fears disguised as logic. Notice how often you predict failure before you've even tried. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. You can't change patterns you refuse to see. The truth is that almost everyone feels stuck at some point. Athletes. Entrepreneurs. Artists. Parents. Students. Retirees. The feeling itself isn't the problem. Staying there forever is. Sometimes life isn't asking you to make a giant leap. Sometimes it's simply asking you to take the next honest step. One phone call. One application. One conversation. One workout. One page. One decision. Those tiny moments seem insignificant until you realize they quietly become the story of your entire life. Years from now you'll probably look back and discover that your life didn't change because of one dramatic breakthrough. It changed because one ordinary day you decided to stop waiting for the perfect moment and started becoming the person you wanted to be, one small choice at a time. Maybe today is that ordinary day. Maybe the version of you that you've been waiting for isn't waiting somewhere in the future. Maybe that person begins with the decision you make after this video ends. If this helped you understand your mind better, subscribe for more videos like this.